Oh, I'm sorry, we're not calling the meeting to order because we are first doing our budget workshop.
Tonight is the first in a series of presentations in regards to the planning of our 26-27 budget. As we look ahead to next school year, tonight we're going to start with an overview of some of the considerations, some of the information around finances such as the tax cap, fund balance, tax cap versus where we lived with tax levy historically. So tonight we'll really lay the groundwork for what we will present at our next budget workshop, which will be a draft one. So as we begin this process and we have these conversations, these 4 goals are what guides the work that we do. As we're talking and planning about our budget workshop, we need to make sure that the decisions that we're making link to each one or one of these goals as we make decisions. When we talk about staffing, if these are the goals that we are committed to ensuring for our students, then these are the goals that we need to keep in mind as we make decisions. This is always a balance with fiscal responsibility, so we want to be able to provide the best program possible that focuses on achievement, social emotional learning, and DEI while being responsible to our taxpayers. As we look at the 26-27 budget development, these are considerations that we need to keep at the front of our mind. We're a school. The business of our school is our academic preparation. We need to ensure that the academic programs offer appropriate rigor and support for all students. So as we look at our academic programs, we want to make sure that we are making decisions budgetarily that support the growth of the programs. Over the last couple of years, we've made significant strides in curriculum, professional development. We've made significant strides in looking at who is school working for and who it's not working for, and then working to support those students. So as we take our next couple of steps, and as we're looking at the decisions that'll come before us, we need to make sure that our academic programs stay at the forefront of our minds. It's important to our community, we hear this often, that we continue to maintain extracurricular offerings. We pride ourselves on the variety of offerings, but also the grade levels that they span. So maintaining that is going to be important to our community, but also it helps develop well-rounded students. We know that what students walk away with is more than just simply what happens within the classroom, and our extracurriculars over the years, we've worked to build these up. We have incredible support from our teachers in offering different activities for students across grade levels, so we want to be able to continue to fund that. We want to continue our commitment of safety measures. Over the years, we've made significant upgrades to our safety, our hardening of the building, right? Like at our 2016 project, we changed our vestibules. We've increased safety with some of our badging systems, our camera systems. In addition, we've added some staffing around safety. So we are looking to continue those as we look ahead to the next school year. We want to continue to support the professional development of our staff. We are asking our staff to do a lot. They are there, they're engaged, they're guiding that work. As we develop and adopt new curriculums, we need to be prepared to support them. We have supported them through coaching, we have supported them through time, we have supported them through materials, and we need to keep doing that as we grow our programs. Our collaboration with our districts for all of our learners, as for all of our learners, have gone exceptionally well. That's the Riverside Collaborative. We've been able to develop the programs here, develop our staff that's here, and make sure that we can offer exceptional programs for our students who have exceptional needs. That program continues to benefit us internally. Our kids get to stay in district where their families live and where their friends and their neighborhood kids attend school. And we've been able to do that by offering slots to neighboring districts to help offset some of the costs of having self-contained programs. We want to be able to continue that work. We've also benefited from this program because we've kept kids out of tutoring. We, being our size, can't offer all of the different kinds of programming that kids need. We have kids who need academic skills programs. We have kids who need programs that specialize in some of the characteristics that students have with autism. And we also need programs for students with behavioral needs. We can't offer that level of programming here, but by partnering with these districts, we can offer one specialty, they offer the others, and then we have places for our students to attend if and when the need arises. And that keeps students off of tutoring. Tutoring is the least ideal situation. They're only getting a couple of hours one-on-one with an adult per day, and we don't want to be there. There's times where we need to be there while we're waiting a placement, but by participating in this collaborative, we've been able to reduce the number of students on tutoring and that need significantly, which really is a win all around. Our pre-K program, which you'll hear a little bit more about later from Mrs. Kozlowski, we want to continue to offer that programming. There is the potential for an increase in aid in the executive budget, which allow us and can allow us to do more, but we want to make sure that we're able to continue that into the 26-27 school year. Our students who come through our pre-K programming and come through pre-K are so much better positioned for kindergarten when they get with us here in that fall of the kindergarten year. We will continue over the next couple of months to continue to analyze and review state aid figures. The state aid budget, or the state budget, is due on April 1st of 2026. However, there are years when it comes through late and our budget remains the same, so we'll continue to analyze and keep an eye on state aid figures and keep an ear to the ground about developments through the negotiation process over the course of the next couple of months. And as that information becomes available, we'll bring that forth in our budget presentations. We want to continue and maintain replacement programs. We have worked really hard to create and maintain replacement programs for our technology, equipment, and furniture. That way the district never has a year where there is a very large expense that we will incur. We have all of our Chromebooks on a rotation, our smartboards on a replacement rotation. We have worked carefully to replace furniture in different sections of the building that are aging. And we've worked really hard to keep an eye on our equipment. A lot of that tends to be in the maintenance department, but we keep an eye on things like floor strippers, right? They don't last forever, and we want to be able to be on a replacement plan schedule so that we don't start having these large ticks and expenses over the years. We are working to finalize tuition costs for our high school programs. We are in the midst of high school choice right now for our 8th graders. So as students and their families make the decisions about where they're going to go for high schools, we look at who's graduating and who's coming in. So if there's 20 kids graduating at Shaker, but we have 30 kids coming in, there's a tuition impact there. This year it looks pretty net neutral, but that's something that we keep an eye on. We want to look at, our kids choosing Waterville? Are they choosing South Colony? Are their kids choosing Tech Valley? There's different tuitions associated with each of those programs, and there's different busing. So we keep an eye on all of those selections as they go. We will also pay attention to, we sometimes have kids who are in K-8 homeschool or K-8 private schools who then make the decision to transition into a high school. It's hard to homeschool beyond 8th grade. So a lot of times families will transition at that point. That's a piece that we keep an eye on as well. We look at who do we have in homeschool, what are their plans as they look ahead. So we'll monitor all of those tuitions as we continue to plan for next year's budget. We will review and finalize BOCES expenditures. So they will send us what we have this year. We will look at what we want to accomplish through BOCES next year, and we will work to finalize those expenditures. We try to do work through BOCES because you get the aid back in the following year. So we will look at that and we'll try to maximize using BOCES when we can and when it makes sense. A good example of that is tangible development. We ran that through BOCES because we will get aid on that next school year. So we'll continue to look at those and make some decisions about what makes sense to purchase through BOCES, what they offer, what they don't offer, and what our district needs as we look ahead. We continue to look at transportation costs. So we have some decisions to make in the upcoming months around transportation. Transportation continues to be a large portion of our budget. We rely, as you know, solely on contract transportation. So we had a 5-year contract with our transportation company. Last year, the board opted to do a 1-year extension at CPI. We will have to make a similar decision this school year. Do we want to go out to bid, or do we want to look at rolling over for an additional year at CPI? CPI is trending at about 3.5%. And there's a lot of decisions that go into that. We are going to work with a company around transportation planning and transportation bids. There is a piece of timing, like we talk about going out for construction bids, right? There's a piece of the timing. It's really about feeling the market out and then making a decision about what's best at this point in time. So we continue to work and look at transportation costs. We want to be able to control our transportation costs while also providing reliable transportation for our students, not only to attend here at Manans School, but also attend our privates and our high schools. And then the last piece we need to talk a little bit about is we've been working really hard with representatives from different consortiums, and then also with our health insurance committee to evaluate consortiums for health insurance. Health insurance costs continue to rise. We feel that here at school, we feel it across different sectors. So we are looking at different consortiums and what could that mean for health insurance costs, not only for us, but also for the employee. And that is a task because we also need to maintain excellent health insurance coverage. Our employees benefit, one of their greatest benefits is their health insurance coverage. Working for a school district, and that is a priority as we look at these different options. So we have been meeting with our health insurance committee. We met with them. We looked at one consortium. We're investigating a secondary consortium to see what would work best, what would provide us either equivalent or better coverage than what we currently have, and also trying to do that in a way that saves money for both the employee and the district. We are currently what you would call community rated, which gives us some of the highest increases out there. It's essentially like signing up in the marketplace and looking for health insurance that way. Being a small district, we don't have buying power. By joining a consortium, you start to get some of that buying power that we so desperately could use to bring some of our costs down. So we'll continue to evaluate those and work to bring some of our health insurance costs down and into alignment. So tonight we're going to take a look at the tax cap. The tax cap calculation and information is what determines what we are allowed to go out and ask the community for as far as a tax increase goes. So when we look at our tax cap information, there's some pieces that start to drive that calculation, which we'll talk about on one of the slides coming up. So the first piece that we're going to look at is the tax base growth factor. That is our tax base growth factor. That is set for us. We don't have any influence on that. And that is set by bricks and mortar, essentially. What's the physical growth and improvements in the village? Our growth factor is 1.0046%. It is down a little bit from last year. That 0.18% really looks at about $144,000 in difference in growth. So in the big scheme of a village, right, that's not a huge number, but it does impact what our tax cap limit will be. Also, what impacts our tax cap calculation are exclusions. So our exclusions are the net of our debt service payments, less any aid or reserve for debt funds, and it includes an exclusion for the BOCES capital expense. This will also include our bond that was issued for this past December for the 2023 project, the roofing and the paving project that we did. So we need to know what our exclusions are, right? We can't collect on money that we get aided on. So that is also included in our tax cap calculation. Once again, this school year, there will be no additional exclusion for retirement increases. And that is because our employer contribution rate increases are less than 2%. When they're less than 2%, that doesn't go into our exclusions. And then the last piece is that this calculation is required to be filed by March 1st. We send that into the state comptroller. We'll provide an updated calculation at our February 23rd workshop. I say that because there are some factors that we are still yet to determine as we look at our calculation tonight. And one of those is going to be around when we start our next building project. So as we look to potentially start it in the summer of 2026, depending on timelines, there are implications for that. And that could increase debt service, which could increase our tax cap. Now, I say to you, we don't have to go out to what the tax cap is, right? If that becomes something that inflates it as we go on time, ultimately what we decide to go out for our tax levy, that increase is up to the Board of Education. So I just say that to you as we look ahead. In addition, this tax cap rate can also come down, and it likely will. We are still looking at our pilots. We're finalizing those with the town of Colony, and we continue to look at the other factors, including those exclusions, right? So in our conversations, tonight's calculation will have you at about 2.5%. We do believe it's going to be closer to 2%. So I will share that with you as we look at the next page, but just know as we look at the tax cap, that is still in flux a little bit because we do have some outstanding factors that we need to continue to calculate. And I do believe that it actually will come down a little bit. Okay, so tax cap calculation for you. This is going to be in your slide deck. You can look at it, a little bit more in depth. at the end of the meeting and answer any questions that you may have as we go through this. So we have 5 years of tax cap calculations for you. And the reason I would say we're not going to go through every calculation in detail, but what I would call your attention to is where we have been over the years for our tax cap. We've been at 2.9, 2.2, 0.2, 4.1, and we are looking this year, currently it's sitting at 2.5, but I did say that I do believe that's going to go down a little bit closer to 2%. When we calculate our tax cap, we start with last year's levy up top, and then we use our growth factor from the previous page. And that lets us know our starting point, which is a little over $8 million. We take our prior year pilots, add them in, and then we take our prior year capital tax levy exclusions and subtract them out. Remember, we have to take them out. If you get aided, you can't keep them in. And that brings us to our adjusted prior year tax levy, which will put us at about $7.9 million. We use our allowable growth factor, which is at 1.02 for CPI, which is 1.02 or 2%. We're at 1.02. We put our pilots in, we need to take them back out. Remember, pilots are in lieu of taxes, so we collect those separately from our tax levy. We had a little bit of carryover last year. Those are funds that cross over the school year. We had $745. We have to put that back in. We have our capital exclusion for the coming year, which then will leave our maximum allowable levy at 8.1, a little over $8.1 million. So that is where we are right now, based on our current calculation. We are allowed at this point in time, without going out with the supermajority, to go out to our taxpayers with a 2.5% increase, which is the $8.1 million. So when we talk about that 2.5%, Joanne and I had a conversation, and we wanted to give you a little bit of information about where we've been with the tax cap calculation and where we've actually landed with our rate in August. So one of the things that we will talk about, our voters will approve expenditures. How we decide to fund that is up to us, right? Our revenues, how we decide to fund what they approve, we determine that internally. They are voting on our expenditures. So we have asked them in previous years, here's our levy that we've gone out and asked them to approve. And that was calculated at this tax cap rate that we had gone to. So last year, we asked for a 4.14 increase, which resulted in a levy of about $7.9 million. The reason I brought this slide to your attention is we often talk about our tax cap and we talk about the increase in the levy, but what does it mean to homeowners in August once the assessments are set? And we often tell you, if assessments go up, we're going to come in under the tax cap calculation. If assessments go down, we're going to come in higher than what the tax cap calculation is. And the reason I bring this to your attention is in many years, the feels like tax rate, what actually gets passed along to our taxpayers, winds up being lower than what the tax cap calculation was. So although we went out to our taxpayers and asked for a 4.14 spending increase, when they got their tax bills, that actually resulted in about a 2.53% increase. We've been very fortunate here at Manans. Our assessments have continued to increase. There was one year when they went down, and you will see that the tax cap was lower than the tax rate, and that happened in 22-23. We went out to our taxpayers and asked for a 2.9 spending increase on the tax bills when they came through. They were actually looking at about a 3.66% increase. We don't have any control over what happens here. And that's why it's very important to say to our taxpayers that you are approving our levy increase. And then once assessments are all set in August, it's August, right, Joanne? That is when the actual tax rate comes through. And that's what it feels like to our taxpayers' pockets. So historically, as I was saying, our tax rate tends to be a little bit lower than our tax cap calculation. That doesn't make any promises for the coming year, but I think it is important to know what our history is. Because it's something that we often talk about, right? And I'll tell you like, oh, this is our tax cap, don't know what the rate will look like. And we can't tell you what the rate can look like, but what we can share with you is some previous rates and levies, just for your information. Did you add anything to that, Joanne?
No, I wouldn't, there's a few other things that go into the tax levy. There could be, things we have to collect for things that happened the previous year. But other than that, it's pretty much how we describe it every year during the budget season.
And for the purpose of moving ahead, when we're looking at our tax cap calculation, we just have to work with the last assessments that we know. So that is why that number gets copied down here, because we're working with what we currently know. We don't know what that assessment of value is, so we just start with what we had from the previous year. And then that obviously gets updated once we have our final numbers. The executive budget, which was the state aid runs that I had shared with you previously, and where our working formula for right now, the current year we sit in. So just to give you a sense of where we've been and where they are recommending that we go for next school year. So our foundation aid, you're going to see a little bit of an increase, about $15,000. We are in that group of schools that get a 1% increase. We are under hold harmless. So if you are a hold harmless district, you get a 1% increase, and that's where we are. To give you a sense, if hold harmless went away, that would be about a $400,000 difference. So we get our 1% increase, but we remain on hold harmless. Hold harmless is, despite the formula aid changing, not taking aid away from us. Our BOCES aid, this year, we were looking at about 275,000. Looking ahead, we're looking at 380. A big piece of that are some of the expenditures that we've had, particularly around tangible developments being run through BOCES. That is a place where we will get more aid. We spend it this year, we will get aid back on that in the coming year. High cost excess aid is going down a little bit. Those are our high cost placements. So moving into this partnership that we have fewer students sitting in high cost placements, which means we get less on high cost aid, but ultimately we're paying less in tuition. So it's a little bit of a wash there. Private excess cost is up a little bit. Hardware and technology, it's down $100. It remains pretty flat. Our software, library, and textbook is down a little bit. Transportation is up a little bit. We need to work and continue to finalize those numbers. Those are based on projections, which I'll talk a little bit about in the future slide. And then this last one here, the building and reorg incentive, that is up 127,000. So the piece that I will say is that this slide is going to differ a little bit from the state aid runs that I gave you around building aid in particular. The state aid runs did not have the bond that we just closed out in December in them. We will get aid on them. Those runs just didn't capture that yet because it was in the process of being processed. So this is much more representative of the aid we will get, particularly around building aid. On the bottom, we have pre-K. There has been a push at the executive level to increase pre-K funding. And this is part of a larger plan that the governor has for the state. So we currently get $5,400 per student who is enrolled in pre-K. We have 18 seats. And that helps offset the district share for pre-K. It winds up being about $97,000. With the teacher benefit, aid, and benefit, it costs us much more to run that. We absorb that through the general fund. The recommendation is moving pre-K seats to be reimbursed at $10,000 per seat, which brings the aid up to $180,000, which is an $82,000 increase. With that being said, if that comes to fruition, it does give us the potential. We have always capped our pre-K at 18 seats. Once you go beyond 18 seats, you have to add another aid. We can go up to 22, but you have to add an additional aid. We have been unable to do that because 4 seats is about $20,000 worth of aid. An aid with benefits is a greater cost than that. So we have capped that. We do have the potential of going up to 22 seats. I will say that this is part of a bigger picture. Looking at 28, 29, that year, we may be in a place where we are required to offer a seat for any pre-K student who lives within the village. It'll be kindergarten enrollment, starting with 4-year-olds, essentially is what it will be. So if we get to that place, funding coming through at $10,000 a student makes that much more tenable for districts. I will tell you many of our neighbors, at $10,000 a student, offering pre-K becomes real, like a real thing that you can do and not have incredible impacts on your budget. Space is going to be a factor. As we look ahead, we are adding 3 classrooms. That becomes less of a factor for us. You know, having to offer 2 classrooms is much more doable once we've added a couple of classrooms to our building as a whole. So, I guess great that the building project is coming to fruition. We're going to need those classrooms in more ways than we can possibly know. Because my guess is that just like we haven't had a single kindergarten in probably 10 years here at Manans. We don't have a single kindergarten. We're likely not going to have a single pre-K. So that increase in funding, if it comes to fruition, can make what they're hoping to accomplish a lot more possible for districts to do. The factors that will continue to influence our state aid. So as I was sharing with you that the building aid numbers and the runs that I gave you did not include the roof project. Those runs were finalized prior to January 1st, and our building project final cost reports were due December 31st. The timing just doesn't allow for them to be reflected. The information that you have in this slide deck is more reflective of what we expect in building aid than what is on those runs. And it's about $139,000 is what we're looking at. Foundation aid, as I shared with you before, the executive budget allows for a 1% increase. That's why we're looking at about a $15,000 increase. And we are one of those districts that are on hold harmless. What I will share with you is that we are fully funded for foundation aid. That was a big deal here for a long time. So I know we're only looking at 1% increases, but to be fully funded here at Manans had made a world of difference to us. So I would just, sometimes memories can be short in the world of state aid. For many years, our state aid was much lower. So we are much better positioned than we had been historically. Hold harmless is when the formula, when they're running the foundation aid formula, when they're running that, we would get less aid from the district. The district would get less aid than it previously had. We are one of those districts. If they were to run the formula right now to calculate our aid, we would come in lower. So we do fall under hold harmless. We're going to continue to look at transportation aid, and that is because we need to estimate our spending and then compare it to what was projected. So Joanne is asked to do transportation projections in the prior year, and they're just that, they're projections. And I would share with the board that we do have a lot of factors that influence our transportation. When students go into permanent housing, those are often new bus runs that we have to create in order to transport students from where they're living in permanent housing to get to the Manans. If a new student moves into the district and they select a private school, they have 30 days for a move-in date to request transportation, and we have to honor. So there are a number of factors. If we have a student who goes on long-term suspension at one of the high schools, and now their transportation times are different, we have to offer transportation for those students. So there are a multitude of factors that impact us. So Joanne does her best. She looks at what we've had, where we've been, the students we have in front of us, and we make projections, but we do need to go back and compare them. Because there are a couple of these aids, and transportation aid is one of them. In the chart where I had the aids, the ones that are bolded are expense driven. Transportation aid is expense driven. So we do our best to project, but at the end of the day, it's going to be dollars and cents that we spend. Again, we'll look at the exclusions. Please know that these exclusions will include the bond that was issued in December. So we'll continue to watch our exclusions. We'll continue to keep an eye on those calculations. As I said previously, there are no additional exclusions for retirement, so what we have for those exclusions are what we have. While the increase in pre-K funding in its idea is exciting, please know it is not final until they adopt that budget, hopefully by April 1st. I do believe that the governor is committed to increasing aid. However, competing priorities can land on desks, right? So we will just say that that continues to be something we hope for, but as we plan, we are not taking that impact away from the general fund yet. We do pay a portion of benefits right now for our pre-K people to do it ourselves. If the funding increases, we won't need that in the general fund, but I will tell you that's not definite, and we need to work from what we know today. And then the approval of the state budget, it's supposed to be done by April 1st. There are many years it runs late. What I will share with the board is we have to do our best to come up with a budget that covers what we need to do as a district, despite whether they approve by April 1st or not. We included a slide on fund balance, and I share this with you because it's important for you to know. We've worked really hard, especially since COVID. We had a lot of unspent money in COVID, right? Like busing which is a huge part of our project, or our budget was no longer needed. So our fund balance has come down over time. We sit at about 5.12%. It will be our recommendation that we continue to appropriate some of our unassigned fund balance to offset the cost to taxpayers. So that will be something that we will look ahead to this school year. It is something that we have historically done, and we will continue to recommend that as we go ahead. We continue to sit in a good place with fund balance. Comptroller's office wants to see it as 4%. We have brought that down over time. 5.12% isn't necessarily a bad place to be right now. As we look ahead to our February 23rd budget workshop, we will be working on a rollover budget with assumptions. We will take our budget from this year and we will look at a rollover if all of our staffing levels stay the same, if our PD levels stay the same, and we'll make adjustments based on where we are. We continue to monitor enrollment and things of those nature, but we will take what we know to be true and we'll roll it over to see where does that put us? Where do those expenditures put us? And then we have to start talking about how do we fund it. I will tell you, when we come back on February 23rd, we often look at having a gap. Many times we come back to you and say, I think last year when we started this, there was a $70,000 gap between projected revenues and expenditures. And we continue to narrow that and focus that and to finalize numbers to start to close that gap. So we will come back to you with a rollover budget. And we will have a conversation about what are we taking, what do we need, what are conversations about staffing levels. Joanna's starting to get information about insurance rates. We're starting to get information about retirement systems. So we will start to take all of that and roll it into our budget to come back to you where kind of our starting point is. We will continue to look at the tax cap calculation. We will likely come back to that on February 23rd, with I shared with you instead of 2.5, probably a little closer to 2%. The calculation and the submission can be changed. We need to put it in. If a factor changes and our tax cap calculation has to change, you can go in and adjust it. It's not like it goes in on March 1st and it's like frozen and you're stuck with what you have. You are able to go in and adjust it. Most years by March 1st, we have a really good handle of what that calculation is. I don't think we've had to, at least since I've been here in a while, go back and make any adjustments, but we do have that ability if something came up and we had some changes in building aid or debt service or something like that, we could go in and do that. We'll come back to you with revenue updates and estimates. Part of that will be based on the tax cap calculation. We'll continue to look at state aid, and we will also give you a staffing overview. We will be talking about FTEs, and we'll do that from this year into next school year. And talk to you a little bit about enrollment shifts. Where can there potentially be changes, where there's not? But we will come back to you with a staffing overview as well for our February 23rd budget workshop. A reminder of where we sit in this process. Tonight here, February 9th was our first one. We'll be back on the 23rd. This could potentially be connected to a Board of Ed meeting, depending on what's wrong.
It's February 23rd wasn't in our budget calendar. That's why I was just looking up the actual budget calendar that we approved and it wasn't in.
Okay, so I apologize. We had gone back and forth about having a second meeting in February. We don't necessarily have to hold one. I guess we can have a conversation around that. I think we had gone back and forth because we took off the January budget workshop meeting. And we had a discussion, do we want a second one in February? So we will need to talk about that this evening.
Okay.
We lost the date in January. And I think that is where that secondary date came in.
Okay.
It is not attached if we hold it to a board meeting. We have had a brief board meeting if there's anything that the board needs to approve at that meeting if we needed to. On February 27th, we need to submit the tax cap calculation. March 9th and 30th, we have 2 more budget workshops. These budget workshops are going to be our draft 1 and draft 2. We start with a rollover and then we start to work towards drafts and start to finalize and bring things together. April 22nd is the date that we need to adopt the budget. April 24th, we submit our tax report. And then there's some of these dates that kind of happen in the background. We have to do an administrator salary disclosure. April 29th, once you've adopted your budget, these are our budget binders that we put down at the village office. We put them online. We have them available at our front desks and all those different places for people to come and look at them if they would like to. We have our formal budget hearing. You've already adopted. This is a chance for us to talk to our public directly, where they come and we share the budget in 3 parts. And then that next day, our budget newsletter hits the mail. And then March 19th, we'll be back here for our budget vote and also evening of the arts. So that is what our timeline looks like. Our next slide does allow for some discussion and conversation. And what I would say is that part of this discussion and conversation is we should talk about that secondary meeting in February, since we didn't have the January meeting. But I will put that out to the board. But for the budget presentation, questions, pieces that you need clarification, you want more information about, things that you're hoping to see in the future, budget workshops, I will turn it over to the board.
Anyone else have questions? I'm good except for that date.
Okay. So that's our second question then. We'll go there. We had a January meeting, which actually worked out very well. We had that huge snowstorm.
Right.
So that we had to pull back from. So the question is from the board, do you want to come back together in February or do you want to come back together in March?
I think, is there a lot that changes between, do we expect to have a lot more information? I mean, we've got draft 1 and right now it's scheduled for draft 1 on March 9th, draft 2 on March 30th.
I think we are well positioned for March 9th. I don't anticipate a ton of changes. I will tell you, as I look at the numbers, I don't anticipate coming to you asking for staffing reductions or big changes in our programming looking ahead to next year. I would say if we were looking at losses of foundation aid or having to remain flat or something of that nature, I might say we have some stuff to talk about, some decisions to make. I don't anticipate coming to you with those kinds of decisions this school year. So I would be comfortable with the March. Joanne, do you want to?
I'm comfortable with that, and we'll make sure that we get it out a nice week ahead of time or several days ahead of time to give you ample time to go through it. Revenue side, we don't expect tremendous changes. We'll increase our pilots. I want to make sure I have a better number on that. That's going to drop your tax cap calculation. Or, yeah, that would be fine with me. I'm not panicked if you say, no, wait, I'm going to go, woo, and that's a week and a half, so that's good.
Okay.
It's up to you.
How does everyone else feel? I mean, if we were, again, like you said, if we were looking at aid cuts or a very high tax cap, to me, that would be something that we would need to be, looking more detailed at the budget. Where do we need to make cuts? But we're not in that position. But if anyone feels like they want more information before the March 9th meeting, how do you guys feel?
I'm good with March 9th. Yeah.
March 9th?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say if something came out and you were concerned, we would bring it back to you sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, we would certainly reach out and say, I think we have some updated information that's going to impact. I would like to put it together again. We would wait until March to do that.
Right. I'm assuming if there's big changes, we're not gonna know until we get closer to the budget deadline anyway. Like, they're gonna be, it's, oh, we can't fund pre-K like we thought we could, would make a big difference, and they're not gonna.
But like right now, business officials, at a meeting recently, the state does not anticipate having an April 1st budget.
Right. And they haven't in
Just so you know.
years, right? So they're definitely not gonna have it by the end of this month.
Correct.
So, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if we're able to just edit that slide and then put, I think the presentation isn't on the website, on the board docs. So just edit that one slide and put it up on board docs for anyone that wants to look at it.
You linked that to our budget page too, correct?
On our budget page, it's linked to board docs.
Yeah.
There it is, yes.
So if anybody goes to our website, they can get to it straight through board docs, but there'll also be a direct link under our budget page as well.
It's not on there though right now.
No, when
It will be.
tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
It'll be in both spots for everybody looking for it.
perfect, thank you. All right, so then we'll switch over to our regular meeting, call to order at 7:14. Could I get a motion to enter public session?
I'll make a motion to enter public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're in public session. Could I get roll call, please?
Mr. Jessica,
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Smexton,
Here.
Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Ron.
Please stand for pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America. For which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all.
Comments from the public on agenda items. A reminder for those members of the public in attendance, this is one of two opportunities afforded to members of the public to comment on and inquire about agenda items. Members of the public will also have an opportunity at the end of the evening's agenda to comment on matters not formally noted on the agenda. Does anybody in person have anything? Anybody online?
No comments.
You can always email us comments if anybody wants to send anything in to boecomments@menans.org. We'll go on to item F, approval of the minutes. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the minutes of the January 12th, 2026 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, communication to the board. Looks like we have two communications. One is an ad request for a drama club. I don't remember. Do you remember what we did last year for an ad? Yeah, I'll have to go back and look. I'll send an email about what? Full page?
I think which ends up being like half.
Because it's folded, right? I got it. Okay, I'll send an email out to everyone about that for next time. The second communication was the annual BOCES meeting. Is this the dinner that the kids do with the?
I think so.
Yep. So that's on April 15th, if anyone wants to go to that. It asks to, I guess you would have to let Trish know by March
I think
20th.
I went online and did it.
Oh, you did it online? Oh, you can just click on the link here.
You just link, but.
Okay,
everything else was straight.
okay. So if anyone's interested, the information is in there. Item 3, discussion items, superintendent's reports and updates.
So we will start with Mrs. Kozlowski. She has prepared a presentation in regards to our pre-K programming and then attendance, which is one of the indicators that will follow.
So like Mrs. Gonzo said, first up is our UP program. So the district took on UPK this year, being the first year, after going with a community-based organization. So why UPK matters? You know, it's a long-term success. It's a strong predictor of long-term academic achievement. It supports social emotional skills, language skills, and cognitive skills. and provides high-quality learning experiences that eliminate opportunity gaps before students enter kindergarten. In terms of enrollment, right now we do cap the class at 18 students. There's 1 teacher and 1 aide. So it allows a lot of opportunity for small group, whole group, one-on-one instruction. We see consistent enrollment year over year. Every year I've been here, at least we've maintained a wait list. That's kind of ebbed and flowed. We've had as many as like 10 kids on the wait list, and then we've kind of trickled down. But it's allowed us, as students move in and out, because we do tend to be a pretty transient district, we can fill those slots with kids on our wait list. And the feedback we've received from families, have shared that they view our UPK program as an essential first step in really preparing their child for kindergarten. And we see that in some of the future slides too. So in the fall, we utilize what's called an early screening inventory, which is a developmental screener approved by state ed. And it screens students in a variety of areas and where they fall developmentally. Visual motor skills, adaptive skills, language and cognition. And what it does is it helps us to identify students who may need additional support, or at least to be monitored as they go through their pre-K year. So with the UPK in our district, it allows us to get student support when they need it early on, which reduces the need for intensive services later. So this is just a look at, since in the last 3 years since I've overseen the pre-K program, how many committee, preschool committee on special education referrals we've had. So my first year we've had 3 and then 2 in subsequent years, which turns out an average to be about 14% of students in that class, which kind of aligns with our school age classification rate as well. So we're able to at least refer students and get them evaluated. Whether they qualify or not for services is a whole other thing, but at least we're identifying those needs early. So if they need support, whether it's right here in our UPK with related services or external services, we can get that for them before they enter kindergarten. All right, and then we utilize an assessment called the GOLD assessment, and that's at the end of the year. So it looks at students and all the progress they've made in a few different areas: social, emotional learning, physical, language, cognitive literacy, and math. And this is kind of the data we report to the state too, that shows how much improvement our students are making based on the program. This data directly shapes instruction and support, and what's nice is it's very easy to share that with our kindergarten teachers. In the past, we've had our kindergarten teachers participate in kindergarten screenings for our students' UPK. In some years, we've used this data to help group students based on need or different factors like that, which is really nice. So based on that GOLD assessment that's given at the end of every year, for the past 3 years, the majority of our students have shown what they say a lot of improvement. So it's like a little improvement, some improvement, and a lot of improvement. And, for the most part, we're 83% or higher, which is great. And they're ready for kindergarten. Okay, so where this kind of puts them in terms of kindergarten readiness, the national norm for kindergartners for reading is 137. For the last 3 years, in fall of 2023, 71% of our kindergartners met that national norm. In the fall of 2024, 66%, and then the fall of 2025, 69%. Our average over the 3 years is 142, so we're higher than the national norm in terms of reading in kindergarten. And then math, so similar, 140 is the national norm. Over the past 3 years, we've exceeded that, meaning more than half of our students. And then the average rate for math is 149 for our students in kindergarten. So also, meeting or exceeding the national norm there. This one is newer. So as part of our MTSS plan, we implemented an SEL screener, and that doesn't start till kindergarten, but for the last 2 years, if you look at fall 2024 and fall of 2025, the majority of our students are falling either in the typical or the strength range, with just a couple of kiddos falling in that need range, meaning they need something more than just classroom instruction. They might need, a group with our social worker or counselor or small counseling cycle or things like that. So this shows us that the majority of kindergarten students falling in the typical range shows us that UPK really does build those foundational social emotional skills. And we see that like day to day. When they come in the first few weeks of school, they're struggling to be with 18 kids. Not many of them have been with that many if they're coming from like a daycare setting. But by the end of the year, they enter kindergarten very well prepared. So in terms of UPK, I know Mrs. Canavo said the budget proposal may increase per pupil funding, which would position us to grow our programming over the next few years, if necessary, in that 28-29 school year. It would be good to continue monitoring assessment data from UPK, CPSE referrals, and kindergarten academic and social emotional readiness. And in terms of alignment, we can deepen the connection. I'm thinking of things like curriculum. We've adopted an ELA and math curriculum for our elementary students. There may be options to look into for pre-K. And even just opportunities, they go on field trips together, pre-K and kindergarten first sometimes, or, they're included in our whole school assemblies and things like that. So just continuing to strengthen the alignment of UPK so it really does continue to feel like a part of ours. Okay, next.
Before we go on to part 2, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have, are we seeing, I know we have a high ENL population in Manans. Are we seeing that in pre-K too, or are we finding that ENL families wait until
We
kindergarten?
do see it in pre-K. So ENL services aren't given until kindergarten, but we get a good sense of which families have a second English language other than English coming in on the surveys they do during registration. And our teacher typically has a really good idea too of, who might need support going into kindergarten. But so we can kind of identify those kiddos, but we can't give them the assessments until kindergarten.
Okay.
But there are a lot of resources out there, and our pre-K teacher is great at embedding a lot of like core vocabulary around the room and visuals and things that support multilingual learners. I don't know if that will change down the line where it's included, but for now, the services start in kindergarten. But the survey that is part of our registration packet gives us really good information, at least.
But the
about-
students are still coming. We do get
Yeah, we
multiple
get a-
students
yes,
in pre-K,
quite a few.
which even the exposure, even if they're not getting the services, they're at least
Yeah,
getting the
quite.
exposure to.
Yeah, quite a few.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have any questions about the pre-K presentation?
All right, attendance. So chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of the total number of school days for any reason. And we included attendance in our MTSS plan in addition to academics and SEL because we just thought it was important to focus on. All right, so our attendance trend over the last 3 years. Before you look at this, I think it's important to note prior to COVID, the average attendance rate for us was 14.2%. And we have just reached 14.2% last year. In New York State, the average before COVID was 15.6%, chronically absent. So we've stayed below that. Each year, as you can see, it's trending downwards. And I do want to note this first year, our enrollment was a little bit higher. So while it was 43 students, now at 37 students here, there's just some enrollment fluctuations, but it is trending downward. I also think it's important to note that out of all of these students, only 4 were chronically absent across all 3 years. We have a lot of, again, students coming in and out. They might have an off year, a lot of illness, transportation and transitional housing situations, but really 4 students out of this full number have been chronically absent across all 3 years. All right, why are students chronically absent? So barriers such as chronic illness, mental health needs, housing instability, disability-related needs, family circumstances. They may avoid school due to anxiety or academic struggles, social interactions. And then sometimes a lack of connection in school community or feeling that, what they're learning is irrelevant or a lack of meaningful relationships. So as part of our MTSS plan, the tier 1 piece is obviously what we do with all students. It's proactive prevention, focuses on removing barriers and building community within our school. Tier 2 is early intervention for those at risk, and I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And that's about 15 to 20% of students. And then tier 3 is pretty individualized support, anywhere from 1 to 5% of students. So for tier 1, again, our goal is to remove barriers. So daily attendance is taken by homeroom teachers in pre-K through 8th grade. And then any student marked absent either receives a phone call or a message from our school nurse. And I think the personalized touch of someone reaching out to families daily makes a big difference. Just so we can identify why they're out, offer support, or just have a better understanding. So tier 2, our program Intervention Compass helps us because it will identify patterns and run some reports for us so we can kind of catch things early. So students who are absent or tardy for 10% or more of instructional days, our support services team gets together frequently, but on a quarterly basis, we review all tardy and absenteeism data to see who has met that threshold of 10%. And the first action is a letter sent home. So, it's basically just a letter saying, hey, your child has this many tardies or this many absences, reminds them of the start and dismissal times of school, and just the importance of attending school regularly. That's kind of the first intervention if they're racking up absences or tardies. And then tier 3 is intensive support. So this is continued absences despite tier 1 and 2 interventions. So again, our team meets, we just did this for quarter 2. We looked at students who received a letter quarter 1, if their attendance has improved, great, our systems are working. If we're continuing to see absences or tardies rack up, this kind of alerts us there needs to be an additional intervention. So we are utilizing our family engagement, Mr. Buskey, to make phone calls or reach out to families just to see if it's something as, they're interested in taking transportation so their kids can get to school on time instead of them having to drop them off early to work. Or just make us aware of any barrier that's going on with their child that prevents them from coming to school, maybe meeting Mrs. Wiley. And again, the goal is just to create a plan with the family so we can get to the root cause and see, are they refusing because they're anxious about coming here? Is it really, they just have a lot of illnesses this year because that happens too, but just to get a better sense and touch and base with the family, personally, help us just do that. So in the past 3 years, we've seen a 2.7% decrease since 2022, and we're finally back to our pre-COVID number. There was one other. I did want to share that currently in New York State, for students in K-8, the chronic absenteeism rate for New York State is 25.1%. So 1 out of every 4 children are chronically absent. So when Ms. O'Connell and I do all our state reporting, the woman we work with always commends us on our rate. And to us, it seems kind of high, 14%. But compared to other schools, it's pretty low. So obviously our goal is to continue to decrease that number, but I was pretty shocked to hear that. So next steps and future goals in terms of attendance, just to continue enhancing school climate initiatives and continue to build community here. Potentially take a deeper dive into those 37 students to identify any demographics or trends. Build and maintain external partnerships. So for example, we worked with St. Catherine's in the past. Sometimes families have caseworkers and things like that we can work with to help reduce barriers to coming to school. And maybe considering a parent training or a workshop on the importance of school attendance for families, because one thing we realize is sometimes when we reach out and we say, at this point in the year, your child already has 10 absences, they build sometimes pretty quickly, or the tardies, right? You know, it's as simple as, oh, I thought your arrival time was 8:30, not 8:10 to 8:20, and we can solve some of those things very quickly. But just a consideration. Any questions?
The only one I had was about like if you talked about moving that phone call earlier in the year, just because by the time you get to Q2, if they're still chronically absent, now it's like halfway into the year. And I don't know if, I guess maybe could make a decision based on, do we know the kid's been out sick? You know, it is not a student who typically has issues or not. But for the families, like you said, if it's a new family or someone we might not know, that phone call might solve it earlier in the year. It's just something to consider, that if you
Yeah.
need a phone call earlier.
Yeah, and I think the fact that our nurse reaches out daily,
Right.
she does kind of provide some of that in the moment, like, hey, just so you know, they're up to 7 absences this year. I know they've been sick, but, yeah, well, we can definitely consider that. What's difficult is trying to find the number of students where it's not improving from Q1 to Q2, right? So like, I was looking at all the families we sent a letter to, and then how many days have they had this quarter compared to last quarter, and
And Nurse Rosie might even have a sense
Yeah.
of like, oh, I've been reaching out every day and, you know, this family is super engaged, but I don't really hear back from this family, you know, maybe.
yeah, and she'll keep us up to date, she'll send us an email, hey, this kiddo's been out 3 consecutive days, like, it might be worth,
Yeah.
reaching out or seeing if there's any issue with transportation or something like that, so.
That communication.
She definitely plays a big part in that, and she's part of our support services team, kind of that can look at it more globally too.
All right, great. Thanks. So much.
Thank you. And then for the board, I just had a brief update on a couple of outstanding projects that we have going on this school year, where we are in that process and where we're going. Many of you sit on different groups that I talk about here, but we thought it was a good time. We're at the halfway point in the year. It is semester 2 has just started. So to provide an update on, these are really 3 of the big planning pieces that we have going on this school year from a district perspective. So the first one is the capital project. So where we've been this year and where we are headed in, I feel it's getting a little chilly.
See, yeah, the breeze coming from somewhere.
In the fall of 2025, we met with CS Arch and we worked through with them the schematic and the preliminary design. So we had a facilities committee that met over a period of about 18 months. So we took the feedback from that group, what the board adopted as the scope of that project, and we sat with CS Arch and we started the schematic and the preliminary design. We met with them. It was probably about a 2-hour meeting, and we talked through. They talked through to us, these are the 3 rooms that we're adding. This is where we are looking at the entrance coming through. This is where an exterior stairwell will be. What kind of finishings are we looking at? And those sorts of conversations that we had with them. We talked a lot about the OTPT space, like square footage and will it fit? Where does the washer and dryer fit? We're talking about having a bathroom. We want to have a changing area for students. We may not require full locker rooms, but when students want the opportunity to change prior to a volleyball game, or whatever it may be, we did still feel like it was important to have a changing area. These are the types of things that we talked at that facilities meeting, and our responsibility during this time is to make sure what we talked about and what the committee talked about and what the board decided as scope of our project plays out. So we met with them in fall. They took that conversation and they had their marching orders to go back and start to create the design work. In January of 2026, we had our page turning meeting, and that is where we look at the design and the drawings in detail. And we start to have some of those conversations. It was Joanne and I. We met with the architects and we went through and we looked at each part that they were proposing. And this is where we start to get into some of the nitty-gritty. So a good example is we talked about replacing, say, 30 windows, right? They indicate that we're going to replace these 30 windows, and we're like, actually, no. These are the windows that are giving us the hardest time in the building right now. So we talked about some of those conversations. We went back to the OTPT space, And we talk about some contingency plans. You know, we have a swing in our OTPT space. We need to make sure that we have a beam that is adequate to hold the weight of the swing. If we don't, we have to have conversations about, do we want to incur a very large expense to put a beam in, should we need to, or do we leave the space where it is and we use that for a different, option? So those are the kinds of conversations that we have at our page turn meeting, and we go through and we talk about those. We talk about things like, we would rather replace windows than interior doors that work just fine, that maybe don't look as pretty. So those are the places where we start to have some conversation about really what the priority of the district is in relation to the building condition survey, and then the outline that both the facilities team and the board gave us. In January of 2026, we met with our financial advisors because CSR came back to us and said state ed reviews were at about an 8-week turnaround, which is unheard of. In other projects, we've been looking at 10 to 12 month review turnarounds. They're at 8 weeks right now. Being at an 8-week turnaround could potentially change a start date for a project. I don't think anybody thought that we were going to come out of this with an 8-week turnaround. I mean, we're looking at, potentially approval at the end of March, which is, I would say, very different than the timeline we had originally talked about. And there are implications for that. If we look at starting a summer sooner, that's great, but there's places where the aid falls off, right? So we have to talk about some of those short-term lending. So we had a conversation with BPD, our financial advisors. What does this mean? We connect them with the architects, we meet with them, and we start to have those conversations. Because in an ideal world, right, like, yeah, it'd be great to start early, but we need to make sure that that makes financial sense for the district. So we continue to have those conversations. We meet with BPD's office again. Again, like I said, would it be great if we could start in the summer of 2026? Yes, of course. However, we do have to, there's more than just wanting to get the work done sooner. We have to make sure that it makes financial sense for the district. And that's what we were talking a little bit with the debt service. Our debt service numbers could change a little bit, and that could impact tax cap. Like it is a domino effect. We've had conversations. Can we use excess fund balance to offset some of that instead of borrowing earlier? So we are asking them to look at all the options so we can come back with a solid recommendation. The other piece is all of these things could line up and the bid environment could be terrible, right? So there are pieces as this unfolds, but we will continue to work through that and keep you updated and continue to look at the big picture as we determine should we be starting a year sooner or not. We did have the designs go back to, separate from that conversation, the designs do go back to our financial planners to take a look at. We want to make sure that our building aid units, the way they submit, line up with how we thought they were going to submit so we can maximize building aid. And then last but not least, we are looking at a submission to state ed tomorrow. We have the documentation this evening for Courtney and I to sign off on. So we will sign off on that information so we can do our submission to state ed. The submission to state ed, we can do that without being in a final place here. The submission to state ed needs to happen regardless of when we're going to start. So we get that in no matter what. And then we will continue to have a conversation about what is it best for the district to start work. And I say it's great to start in the summer of 2026. A big piece of that is escalation costs, right? Things are not getting cheaper over time. So starting a full year earlier could have a positive impact to the cost of the project, but we just need to make sure the financial piece matches up with that. Any questions on capital project? Okay, so that's step number one. The second thing that we have been working diligently around is our work with the tangible development group. So the project that this has been focused on is primarily what I would say is going to be goal 3, if that maintains as we look to our strategic plan in the next 5 years. So we have partnered with Tangible Development to get an understanding of where we are as a district. It's a pretty large encompassing assessment of where we are today, and it's essentially a needs assessment. So that is a piece of it. And then they also work with us to do some capacity building and reignite our DEI group. So in the fall of 2025, let me go back in July and August, I think Kathleen and I spent no less than probably 10 hours each month meeting with Tangible planning so that we could launch these surveys. What are we asking? What do we want to do? How do we get to people? So we spent the summer planning so that in the fall of 2025, we launched surveys to staff, students, and families. At every opportunity they get, they tell us that they were incredibly pleased with the turnout we had in all three sections. So that continues to be an area of pride, I would say, is that we have good information. People answer. Our staff answered, our students answered, we have feedback from them. In the fall of 2025, we also held our focus groups, again, for staff, students, and families. Those were also well attended. We did a full document review with Tangible. We submitted board policies, onboarding paperwork, codes of conduct, anything that we put in print for them to assess from a DEI lens. Newsletters to family, communication to staff, emails, sample newsletters we give to staff, things that we communicate to students. All of those went to them for a full review for feedback in that area. And then in the fall of winter, for 8 Wednesdays, most of them were Wednesdays, for 2 hours, a group of about 14 of us, staff, students, families, board members, PTA board members came together to relaunch our DEI committee, and we did some capacity building. Some of that was about building knowledge, and some of that was figuring out how are we going to work as a group and how are we going to move forward, and that's really where we're spending some time right now. In January of 2026, about a week and a half ago, the administrative team met with Tangible for them to show us how to read the reports. We don't have our data yet, but they went through what we would expect in a report, where the data comes from, and what that would look like. We expect our report at the end of February. And they will go through that report with us, and then we will talk about socialization. One of the pieces that we had determined pretty early was kind of the order that we were going to push the report out. So the first group who will receive a presentation in regards to the report will be the Board of Education. It is my recommendation we do it in a retreat style. I would like Capital Region BOCES to join us because they're going to help us. A lot of this report is going to probably, I'm assuming, help us decide upon our DEI goals in our strategic plan. So I would like to invite them to be part of that socialization piece and to hear our conversations and where our priorities are so that that can start to be folded into our strategic plan. Then we would like to socialize it to staff. We feel it's really important that our staff have the information. The last thing I would ever want is for a staff member to not have gotten the report and have the information and have a parent want to come up and have a conversation, right? There's nothing more, you know, kind of you feel flat-footed, right? And you're like, okay, I'm not sure what you mean. So we want to share with our staff. We want to also get it into the hands of our DEI committee. This report should guide what our priorities are as we move ahead. One of the things we talked about as a DEI group is that we want to be able to select our priority areas. I think this report will do this, but also be flexible to respond to in the moment social things that may occur. And then last but not least, we will then figure out how to socialize to our community, and we will figure out a way, you know, a variety of ways of doing that. I think we tend to lean on in-person presentations. I don't know that that's always the best way to get to our community. So we will need to talk about in our DEI group, our committee particularly, how are we going to get this information into the hands of families? We ask them to participate. We've done all this work. We have an obligation to share with them the results. So that is where we currently stand with Tangible Development. We've done a lot of work. We've got more work to come. We are nearing that end of like trying to figure out where we are. So, so it's a really good place to be in with that project. Any questions regarding to Tangible? And then last but not least, we have our strategic planning. So we are nearing the end of our first 5-year plan. We have partnered with Capital Region BOCES to help us with the planning of our next 5 years. To date, they've had an administrative session talking about where we've been and what our hopes for the district are moving ahead. They've met with you in a Board of Ed retreat to start talking about where your priorities lie as a Board of Education. They are really in, I would say, a data gathering place right now. At the beginning of January, they met with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to understand what their hopes were for our district, and to ensure that we had student voice and what they wanted and what they felt like was important and where were we strong and, you know, where were some places that we needed to improve. They are coming back to meet with teachers at our superintendent's conference day in March. They will hold sessions to elicit feedback from teachers in the area of our strategic plan. And And then last but not least, we will need to discuss a strategic planning committee. And what I will share with the board, and I will give this for you to chew on a little bit, is when we did our first plan, we had a committee that was dedicated just to the strategic plan. That was their sole job. They looked at all the 3 parts and they went through and they worked through the strategic plan with us. I will say over time, you know, the teachers, for instance, that were on that strategic planning committee have either some have retired, some are still with us, and a few have moved on to new positions. And that kind of limited teacher voice. There were 5, I think 5 teachers on the planning committee. We've approached the voice piece a little bit differently. So that's the first piece. And, you know, my question and my wondering is we have some committees that naturally align with some of our goals. And my wondering is, do we leverage those committees? We have a very large group of teachers who are on ELA and math committees that are committed to talking about academics. They may be a group of people to help us shape some of our academic goals. We have a large group that is working specifically around MTSS and social emotional learning. They may be a really good cross-section of people to give some voice to our plan. We have this newly developed DEI committee. I feel strongly that we need to use them to help shape some of the strategic planning. So I do think that we have some groups that have emerged that we should consider using as we take the next steps for formalizing a strategic plan. And that is where we currently are as far as strategic planning goes. Any thoughts, comments I can say on this one or any of the other ones now that we've talked about them a little bit? All right, we'll keep on keeping. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4, Board of Education appointments. We have the appointment of the district treasurer that I have to administer an oath to. And the printed one, or is it just, there we go. Do I do the resolution first? And then the video? Yeah. Okay, could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby appoints Sarah, can I help? Horacek as district treasurer for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let me start oath of office. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Do you have a printed copy? I'm just going to read the whole thing and have you repeat it. And the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the district treasurer according to the best of my ability.
I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the district treasurer according to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Okay. All right, item B, appointment of deputy treasurer. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby appoints Joanne Moran as deputy treasurer for the 25-26 school year. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do the oath of office. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the deputy treasurer according to the best of my ability.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of deputy treasurer according to the best of my ability.
All right, then item 5, business matters, non-action items. A, warrants enclosed for the information of the board are copies of the following warrants and claims auditor report for December 2025. Does anybody have any questions on the auditor report or on the warrants?
Nope.
All right, item B, budget transfers under 10,000. Any questions on those? All right, item C, business office non-action items, appropriation status report. Any questions on the report? Moving on to item D, revenue status report. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, item 6, business matters, action items. A, non-resident tuition rates. Could I get a resolution, please?
Whereas Part 174 of the Commissioner's regulation prescribes the methodology to be used by the public school districts in determining the tuition rate to be charged for a non-resident pupil attending a public school district. And the State Education Department produces a non-resident tuition output report of tuition rates annually to be used for billing purposes. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the tuition rates as stated as of January 29, 2026 on the State Education Department non-resident tuition output report to be used for the billing purpose in accordance with Part 174 of the Commissioner's regulations.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions on this? This is set by the state. We just have to approve it every year. All in favor?
Tuitions.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, business office, action items, donations. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the donations as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We want to thank all those groups for those donations. Item C, business office, action items, treasurer's report. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the treasurer's report for the December 2025 and January 2026.
Second.
Any questions on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, budget transfers over $10,000. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved, the authorization of the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the enclosed budget transfers over 10,000.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, business office contracts for approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the following contract for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
Before we vote on this, just a quick note. We had talked in the budget section about transportation, whether we want to go out at CPI or do a go out for bid for transportation. If we were to go out for bid, bidding for transportation is a very complicated process, so we do not have that expertise. This contract would allow us to hire a company to basically do that bid process for us. As Mrs. Canavo mentioned in the presentation, transportation has gotten more complicated. There's conversations around electric busing and different things. It could be that a bid process might be long and drawn out. Even if we don't want to go out to bid for next year, it might be worth starting the bid process, which is why the contract is still on the agenda for tonight. But if you have any questions about the contract or about the need for a contract, either the transportation or the South Colony. Okay, then we'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, did you want to add anything? about-
No, that was.
Okay. Item F, business office, community engagement grant. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the apportionment of grant and aid from the New York State Education Department in the amount of $50,000 to be appropriated by the Board of Education pursuant to the New York Education Law, Section 1718, Subdivision 2. And be it further resolved, the Board of Education hereby increases the district's general fund budget in the amount of the grant and aid, $50,000, to be used for community engagement purposes.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Personnel matters, updating mentors, item A. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the following mentors for the 2025-2026 school year per the MAT contract as listed.
Second.
This is a mentor for our new library teacher, is that right? So for the mentor for our new teacher for the remainder of this year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, letter of resignation. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the letter of resignation effective close of business March 2nd, 2026 for Lori Hotel. Second.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mrs. Hoteling came and had a conversation with myself and the union president. She is looking for some more flexibility due to some personal obligations that she has outside of the school year or outside of the school day. So I am currently working with the MAT to bring Mrs. Hoteling on as a per diem employee. The role of the psychologist is one of the very few roles that person could be offered some flexibility. There's a lot of report writing, there's communication with families, there's attendance at meetings, and a lot of that doesn't have to happen between 8 and 3 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays where she currently is. It is a union position, so it is a little bit more of a complicated issue than just simply moving her to per diem. However, the union is committed to working with us to ensure stability for our students. I do believe that Mrs. Hoteling can provide that. So we're working through the process of creating an MOA that protects that position within the union, but allows me to move this individual through the end of the school year outside of the union to give her greater flexibility, make her per diem. And then also I am working with Mrs. Hoteling around some rate setting. So while she is formally resigning, she is not leaving the district. We are just trying to work with her to meet some of her personal needs while also providing stability for our kids and our teachers.
Are there any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, personnel agenda. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approves the personal agenda items as attached.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So Brett Bateman will be joining us as the secretary to the principal and the CSE office. She comes to us with extensive expertise in the area of clerical support, specifically when looking at schools. She has a background. She has worked as a district office secretary in local districts. She is currently the building secretary for a special education school. And we are excited to bring her on. She has a wealth of knowledge. She gets kind of how the school machine works. She will need to get up to speed with our processes and our people and our kind of idiosyncrasies, but we are excited to have her join us. She worked with Kathleen and Mrs. Kozlowski through an interview process. She came and visited the building. We've worked through reference checks, and we do believe that she's well positioned to start. Being a civil service position, she had to give 2 weeks to her previous district, so she will be joining us a week from Thursday. And we will begin to transition her into that role. So we're excited to have Brett join us.
Welcome to Ms. Bateman. I think we already voted on that, yes? All right, item 8, policy, a first reading of policies. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, approve the first reading of the following policy as listed.
Second.
Are there any questions about this? We could, so this is a new policy for us. It was a NISBA recommended policy that is not required, but the policy committee looked at it. It's pretty reflective of where our goals say we want to be and where we've been moving as a district. So this is
Just the first reading.
the first reading of this policy for your review. Does anybody have any questions about it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, superintendent program recommendations, CSE, CPSE recommendations. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Substitute teachers fully cleared. Could I get a resolution, please?
Oh, once it'll click there. Yep. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the substitute teachers listed for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, student matters enrollment update. Total enrollment is up to 302. Item 11, administrative updates, business managers' comments. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm going to talk about the voting changes this year. And actually, I'm going to do a shout out to Fort Trish. She has learned more about voting in the last 2 years. And just when she was getting it good, they changed it all. So we work together. We're going to enter an agreement with a company called NTS who will do the there's a lot more demographic data that we now have to collect as part of the vote. You might want to throw in some things. I know all kinds of things, age, sex, if you're male and female, just all this data we have to do. Albany County is no longer partnering with schools, so that's really what prompted this. So NTS works with several area school districts, ones that I have worked with in the past. We met with a few of them. We liked NTS the best. They will create our new poll books. They will make sure they'll do all the work for Trish that we used to have to go in and do ourselves line by line. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Am I missing something in that?
No, the biggest difference is that they'll do all the state reporting for us, which is new this year. Looking at it from what it came out, it was probably gonna take 2 days because we get a PDF from Albany County, the poll book, our wonderful district maps over 2 other districts, so I have to go in and adapt all but like 10 names in those other 2 districts. So they'll do all of that, and it makes it more updated because they pull from, they have a more accurate poll, so it's like, it's just more updated list than what I get from Albany County. So they streamline the whole process. They track all my absentee ballots and my military ballots. It's wonderful.
They're like, because of how technology savvy she is. So everything that they speak to, she's like, yep, done it, I'm ready to do it. So it's gonna work out well. But one of the other challenges for all the schools in the Albany County area is the Albany County will no longer be giving anybody any voting machines. They're not gonna lend them out, it's just done now. So that we're very, very, very fortunate. I think I may have said this to the Board of Education in the past. South Colony is gonna loan us one. They purchased some, they purchased extra. We have a very good relationship with South Colony, so they're giving us one. NTS will come in, and the members are going to now, our residents are going to sign their name. All of the data that is collected will be just at this time, the demographic data will be live the whole time that we do it. We're looking forward to a very smooth process as far as compiling all that data, but I think the benefit will be doing it now and then next year having it even be smoother as far as that'll all be done, all the electronic upgrades. So it's a lot. Some districts have had to go out and spend thousands of dollars to buy their voting machines. We're fortunate. Maybe we'll want to buy one at some point in the ballgame. I don't know. We should probably look at that. The cost to determine if it's worth the expense. But I know that this year we're great and hopefully set ourselves up for a smoother process next year. So we're looking forward to it. But Trish has to do the lion's share of the work, but she knows I'm very helpful.
Does the experience change for the voter, or is it they don't have to enter demographic information? It's just what
No.
you're providing
Yeah, so
that will take it on the back end?
it'll all, when the voter registers to vote, they enter all that information.
Okay.
Instead of having to track that information on my personal spreadsheets, it's all in their application.
Okay.
So the only thing that's really gonna change for our voters is you're gonna sign your name on an iPad rather than looking at like 8 on that. Scanning the things like that. That's the big difference.
That is
You're
the
gonna get
biggest
a paper
difference.
ballot and the machines aren't very different from what we had before.
Yep.
We only have one. So that's it.
Okay. Great, thank you.
That's it.
Administrative updates, principals comments. Right.
You should just go.
Well, while Tricia's loading this, I just will say, I'd like to take a moment just to publicly thank Trish. Since Beth left, she's been doing so much. Yeah, she normally has 10 hats on, she has about 25 on right now, and she does it so seamlessly, and we are so grateful for her. So, thank you. All right, so I don't have a ton of slides today, so that's good because we had a lot to think about tonight. So we did have our wonderful winter concert. So I want to thank Miss Rayo. She put together really sweet, great, wonderful concert. The kids enjoyed it. This was our K2. I don't think I can remember all the songs they sang, but they were oh, Come Around the Mountain. They're too cute. They are too cute. So they did a nice job. We have our 3-5 kids did some dancing as well, I believe. I think our 4th graders did some dancing. Our dancing instructors are back there. They teachers are in the back. They have a dancing crew. And then we had our chorus and our band, who both, did a great job. They did well. They worked hard building up to it and really came through. And, I just want to thank Miss Rayo because stepping into that position, music is a big job in Manans, right? And she did a wonderful job with the kids getting them ready. And I think they put on a heck of a job. So, and thank you to all the parents who got the kids here and all that. It's a lot of work for everybody. So pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade went to the Palace Theater. They watched the Pout Pout Fish. Lots of smiles at the show and lots of smiles upon their return. So the teachers said they had a great time there. Sweethearts and Heroes is wrapping up. Our last visit with them was just this past week. For this year, they won't be returning. They came and they met with they did a whole circle day. So every 5 through 8 got a circle time with the leader of Mr. Fish, who is the Sweethearts and Heroes guy. But he also met with our Brave leaders, and he brought them their own capes to decorate and create, and spent some time with them. Jesai here how could you go wrong? He's ready to save the world. So they got to decorate their capes and then talk about their superpowers that they bring to the building. So they had a good time with that. We're looking at, them coming back at some point and continuing to build capacity around that program. We had a drumming celebration the other day. Jordan Hill is a African drummer who came last year at our Black History Month celebration and performed that evening. And what we wanted to do this year is engage the kids a little bit more. So he came and did a presentation for the whole school. Then tomorrow he is going to 4th grade for an hour and a half and bringing his drums to 4th grade. And 4th grade is going to be doing the drumming at the Black History celebration on the 26th. He's going to be coming back twice to do that, to work with them to prepare for a performance. He also brought along this year some people to teach African dancing, some different dance techniques for the kids to do as well. So there'll be some drummers and some dancers, and they'll be presenting on the 26th. And, we just wanted to share, I know we had pre-K on our agenda today. So just some things that pre-K has got going on. They are a breath of fresh air. You go in and they are full of curiosity, full of learning, full of enthusiasm. They walk in the door, they're thrilled you're there. And, Ms. Pennis is doing a great job. And I can't say enough, 2 weeks, where they're squirrels. They're everywhere. You were trying to put them back in the box, right? To keep them in the building. And now I'm telling you, they could teach the older kids something about a line on the way to gym or wherever. They got it going on. So they do well. Now, so we didn't talk about this real quick. So this is the thing. I didn't know this was in here. So a little behind the scenes. Beth and I always worked together on the slides. She did all the work. When I say work together, I would tell her the topics we're gonna do, and then we would all provide her with the pictures. She would kind of put them together. Bobby took that over, and she knew there was an unwritten rule, no pictures of me go on those slides. She knew this. And Bobby doesn't know this yet. I have a meeting tomorrow. So anyway, Yes, I would never do this willingly, but I do dance willingly at the end of the day. Miss Rayo made a mistake and gave me a recorder. And she said no. No, no. So we do our dance party on Fridays. I am definitely getting a drum in there soon. There's gonna be a drum at dance party at the end of the day very soon. So we have a tambourine. I'm really talented musically. So, yeah, so we'll talk about that, but we have a good time on Fridays. We should ask for it all the time.
We all know that we have to keep an eye on her. Can we go back a picture? So that top picture of her in the hallway, as she was doing that, Bobby was texting that to me because I was down in my office and I was like, oh God, what have you done? So, yeah.
Hey, look at, I got some future musicians here. So yeah, coming up, we have our recess coming up. And then the Kids Heart Challenge. I wanted to talk a little bit about our Black History Month celebration. So that is, we're really excited to do that again. We have the Jordan Hill will be coming to help the kids present. We have some local poets and authors that would like to come and share on stage. We have Justin Parsons' husband will sing again. We have the Sienna Steppers will be coming again. So we have a variety of things that are going to happen. Miss Rayo is going to have a variety of kids also perform. So in music class right now, they're learning different dances and songs so that they can perform on that evening. So we're going to plan for the first half hour of the night to be totally in the gym. And we're all going to kind of celebrate together. And then we will head out to our A to Z tour. We have quite a few things going on with that as well. We'll have our rock painting in here. We have bracelet making. We have a variety of things going on. The barbers will be back. So we have some things all over the school. So it'll be a wonderful meeting. We're very excited for it. Another thing that you go ahead.
Sorry, it's the 26th. though.
26th, it should say, yeah.
Okay.
Thursday, right?
Thursday.
Yeah. We also have coming up right after break, and it's not on here, on the 23rd, I believe it is Lunar New Year, we're having an assembly. A community organization reached out to us about doing a presentation around Lunar New Year in our school. So we will be doing something with the kids. They have activities and some events going on in the gym, and it'll be grade level based. And so they'll learn a little bit about that as well. We have Ramadan coming up, and Miss Rasha and I are in the works of planning an event in the evening around Ramadan where the community would break fast together. So we're planning that right now. It's tentatively March 13th. We're looking, it's a Thursday, where we would invite families and kids to come bring food, almost like a potluck, and to break fast at sundown with each other. So we're looking forward to that. PTA Parents Night Out, is that still the right date, Courtney? I think it is, right? Yeah, I don't think that changed. Right?
Parents, it's the 6th. It's a Friday.
Okay. Great. And then our progress reports will be going out for middle school. Questions?
Did you leave off the staff basketball game? For
Oh my gosh, how did I do that? Yes, yes, it's coming up. Being stretched out, we're getting ready to go. Anyone wants to referee? Mr. Hoffman, you want to come referee? Okay.
Seriously, let me know.
Yeah, PJ's the referee who doesn't know anything about basketball. No, so that's not gonna go well.
You will not call a fair game. Let's just be clear.
So, yeah, that is Friday, right before break. And the kids are practicing. I am saying we're practicing. I get on the loudspeaker and congratulate the staff for how hard they practiced the night before. We haven't touched basketball since last year, actually. So we are just antagonizing the children. And then what they do is they take it seriously, and they've been practicing like twice a week. And we're in big trouble. So, but it brings them together. So the more I talk about it, the more they kind of want to play and hang out together, which is my end goal anyway. So it's a win-win. But it'll be fun. It'll be a hot mess, but it'll be fun. So come and join us if you like. I'm inviting you to come and hang out and see the game. I'm actually thinking of reaching out to 8th grade parents and seeing if they want to come and watch the game, because, you know, it'd be fun for an 8th grade parent to see their kid. It is exceptionally loud in there. The entire gym screams for an hour and a half, just so you know, the entire gym. So anyway, come join us. It's fun. Hopefully we'll win this year. Maybe not. We just want to survive, right?
You're like Landon.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of trash talking now. As my game gets worse, my trash talking is getting worse. So that is really where I've been taking it with the really hitting them hard this year with that. It's one of the highlights of the year for me. Yeah, I say I'm ready to play, but I'm not.
We're not.
So I am masking it by moving a lot of that.
First practice is gonna be Wednesday. Yeah.
Start stretching now.
Yeah.
We're gonna assign you as the coach.
I'm gonna put that cake in her.
Yeah, but Officer Stone said all he knows is football, and that's the rules he's gonna go by.
Right.
Oh,
So,
right.
if I have basketball,
Actually,
All right.
so you can appreciate basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, 1:30, be here, help us out.
Item 12, miscellaneous. This is a opportunity for board members to mention community events, or bring up items that they would like to see on a future board meetings. I'll just say the PTA pancake breakfast wasn't in there, and it's our fault because we moved it. It was supposed to be the 7th, and now it's the 28th. So coming up pancakes Saturday morning, February 28th. I will also say the PTA is looking for board members. If anybody knows anyone who would be very into PTA or even like a little into PTA, let us know. Especially if they know anything about money, because we're gonna need a new treasurer. And that's like gonna be the hardest job to fill. So, because people are scared of that, it's fine. You don't need to be an accountant to be the PTA treasurer. Does anybody else on the board have anything they want to share or ask about or bring up?
Good.
Item 13, public comment. During public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. Speakers should identify themselves and the topic on which they would like to make remarks. Does anybody have anything? Anybody online? Again, you can always email at boecomments@menans.org. We will read them next time, if you email them now. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, and then I'm going to ask for a motion to enter executive session. We will have an executive session. While you are welcome to stay, we do not anticipate taking action after the executive session if you would like to go home before it gets any colder. Could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Could I get a motion to enter executive session, please?
I'll make a motion to enter executive session.
Second.
Just note, we have to say why we're.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's me. I'll make a motion to enter executive session for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.